Hi there, and welcome to Live with the Paper Pixie, episode 370. I'm Julie DiMatteo, the Paper Pixie, coming to you live from Alpharetta, Georgia. Today is Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. If you're watching us live as you're rolling on in, say hello and where you're watching from. And I want to give a special shout out to my Pixie patrons. You'll recognize them in the live chat with the little magic wand icon next to their name. They are channel members here, and as special perks to be a member of the channel, they get a little magic wand symbol next to their name. You guys get your names mentioned in the credits. And I do a once a month members only live stream for my Pixie patrons. So we'd love to have more of you join us. You can find details about that. There's a link in the description. There's also a join button depending on what device you're viewing the video on. And hello to my replay watchers. Thanks for joining me. I have got a really fun project for you tonight that many of you have been asking for. We're going to be making a backpack gift box, and I want to give a special shout out to the inspiration to Rosalyn-Sue Smith. She gave me the most adorable backpack at OnStage. I loved it so much I had to recreate it. So that's what we're going to create tonight. Really the only difference with mine, I think I put it together a little bit differently. Measurement size is the same, but I added a little handle to the top. So everything's good? Okay. So that's the scoop there. A little bit of housekeeping. If you've got a question for me, if you're new here, first of all, let us know in the chat if you're new. My amazing audience will give you a big warm welcome. But if you're new here, if you've got a question for me tonight, go ahead and put a Q in front of that question. That will make it into my queue. I save all of the questions till the end of the live stream. That way I can focus on demonstrating tonight's project for you without interruption. And then I will stay on until I answer all of your questions. So the Q gets you in the queue. Please do save that for questions. And you only need to put your question in once. Again, remember, I'm saving them till the end, so I will see all the questions that have a Q in it, all right? So this is the last few days for you to earn Pixie Perks. So when you do shop with me between now and April 14th, orders of $25 or more will earn Pixie Perks with me, and you can shop with me at any time, even after April 14th. My magic shopping link will remain the same. It'll just do a little bit of different magic after the 14th, but the paperpixie.com/shop. That will take you to the Stampin' Up! Online store, shopping with me, and between now and April 14th, it'll have the host code attached to your order. After that, it'll just be shopping with me because the host code is going away. Starting April 5th, Stampin' Up! Is rolling out a brand new Stampin' Rewards program that is even better than my Pixie Perks. So that is why Pixie Perks is being sunset or retired, and Stampin' Rewards will take the place of that. But it's going to give you so much more flexibility. So there's two things you're going to want to do to start using the Stampin' Rewards program on April 15th. One is you have to have an online customer account because Stampin' Up! Needs to know where to put your Stampin' Rewards. And two, you have to opt in. So when you start shopping April 15th or later for the first time, there will be a little pop-up box, as long as you're logged into your Stampin' Up! Account, asking you if you want to opt into the Stampin' Rewards program, and you should say yes. I don't know why anybody would say no, but I think you would love to earn Stampin' Rewards. Anybody who places an order of $20 or more will earn 10% back in Stampin' Rewards. So today's Stampin' Rewards program, you actually have to spend $150 to get Stampin' Rewards. So I so much like the $20 threshold better, but that starts April 15th. We'll chat about it again on next Wednesday's live stream, but that is Tuesday, so between now and next Wednesday. That's the scoop there, but if you have Pixie Perks with me, you would have gotten an email last Monday if your Pixie Perks haven't expired. And if you're wanting to reach a certain level to earn Pixie Perks rewards, you're going to want to place those orders by Monday, okay? So that's the scoop there. The other thing you're going to want to check out, if you haven't already, last Tuesday, last Tuesday, the last chance list was refreshed, and I think there was over 200 products that were added to the last chance list. These are products that will soon retire. Many of them have discounted prices, so I've also linked the last chance products in the video description. So it's the paperpixie.com/lastchance. I am going to be doing product shares and In Color Club. In the video description, I have links to jump on my mailing list for either or both of those if you're interested. I do plan to have the final details finished by the end of this week. So if you're on my mailing list for product shares or In Color Club, essentially if you've ever participated with me in the past with product shares or In Color Club, you're already on the mailing list. If I'm new to you or you haven't participated in either of those programs, get your name on that email list. You're going to be the first to get details when I roll those out. I offer In Color Club every new annual catalog launch, and it's a way for you to get all 5 of the In Colors and all of the products that go with it. So monthly Happy Mail for 5 months with the In Color Club, and then product shares. This go round, I am going to include embellishments. I don't typically with annual catalog, but there's not as many new embellishments. So I'm going to include embellishments, ribbon, paper, and there's also going to be, this is new this time around, a paper add-on for the color families. So you have an option to add that if you want to or not. If you participate in either the paper share or the I Want It All share, you'll get an option to add the add-on if you like. So just a little heads up there. Those details I believe are going to come out by the end of this week, if not end of this week, early next week. The kids are on spring break this week, so my work schedule is a little crazy with them being home, but it is fun having them home. So I think that's all the housekeeping. Let me show you another sneak peek of my version of the backpack gift box. And let me bring in Rosalyn-Sue's version. I love, she used bubble bath, and this was the, oh, I can't remember the designer series paper, mixed floral, something along those lines. Anyways, I love the color combination. So it's such a cute little box. Many of you have asked me to do this. I've seen a couple of different versions. Lots of German demonstrators have done a backpack like this. I think Poodles has done one. Lots of inspiration out there, so feel free to check out Pinterest for inspiration, but this is Rosalyn-Sue's version and mine very close. I just added a top handle, the Paper Pixie version. So guess what? I have the project sheet already linked in the description. Hot mess behind me, but project sheet in the description. You can download that after the stream. And I've got some show and tell from Nolan, and then we'll jump right into tonight's project. So Nolan picked a couple of additional Lego creations. He's created an airplane, and there's actually 2 passengers and a pilot in there. You guys probably can't see that, but there's the airplane. And then we have a boat, and this seems to be planes, trains, and automobiles, and 2 little mopeds, a motorcycle and a moped. So that's what he's got for you tonight. He limited his collection so that we could spread it out over a few weeks. So that's Nolan. He's our 3rd grader. Oh my gosh, the school year's almost over, and then I'll start saying rising 4th grader, which is crazy to me. All right, let me show you the products we're using first. I do have to cut some of the paper because I ran out of time to do that, but that's going to be an opportunity for me to share a couple of tips when we're cutting paper that we plan to kind of curl. So I'll get to that when I cut the paper. I'll give you my tips and tricks there. So, don't kill me. This one just retired a day ago. Crafting with You was on the last chance list, and you guys love this stamp set so much it sold out. I think it was yesterday on the April 8th, but I'm using the sentiment with love. So if you have this stamp set, you can copy mine exactly. If not, look for a great kind of smaller sentiment. I love the way that Rosalyn-Sue did hers. I debated on doing any stamping, but she added this really cute, I think this is an inch and a quarter and an inch circle punches, that beautiful little heart and a pearl there. And then she did add a little bit of stamping here with Love You. I almost didn't add any stamping. The box itself doesn't really need a stamp set, but I did love that little focal point there. So use what you have in your stash. We're also using the Unbounded Beauty Designer Series paper. I love this Petunia Pop and Berry Burst version here. Beautiful paper. This one I believe is carrying over, or at least it's not in the last chance list. I can't remember if it made it into the new annual catalog. The Unbounded Love dies, and I'm just using the smaller stitched circle. That's a mouthful. This is about 1 1/8 inches in diameter. I also used a 1-inch circle punch. Again, this was retired from, this isn't the Stampin' Up version, but we used to have one from Stampin' Up. The 1-inch circle punch from EK Tools. You can get that off of Amazon. We're using the Berry Burst ink pad. You could use Petunia Pop as well. So those are the products we're using. And I'm gonna bring out 2 sheets of Petunia Pop and my paper trimmer, okay? All right, so for the backpack, so the larger piece of this box, we're doing just the one project tonight because it's technically 2 boxes in one. So I figured if I had added another project, we'd be here all night. So we need a piece that's 8 by 11. So I've got an 8.5 by 11 piece of Petunia Pop, and I'm just gonna cut off a 1/2 inch from the 8.5 inch side, so from the short side. So 8 by 11 is the size that we need for the backpack part. And then for the pocket on the front, we just need an 8 by 4. So I'm gonna actually take the second piece of cardstock and again, cut that little strip of 1/2 inch off to make it 8 inches wide, just like we did the first piece. And then I'm gonna turn it to the long side and cut at 4, okay? So we've got the backpack is the larger piece, that's 8 by 11. The pocket on the front is 8 by 4. And then for the handle and the straps, here's my best tip with cardstock. So cardstock fibers typically run either vertical or horizontal, but you can kind of tell based on when you try to bend the paper. So it might be hard to see on video. I can feel it. This direction is fighting me a little bit to curve, okay? But if I turn it this direction, look how much easier that bends. I'm putting the same amount of pressure. This is bending much smoother than this side is. This is fighting me a little bit more. So when I test that, I'm trying to decide where the paper fibers are. So if it bends easily, and anybody in the comments, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is if it's easy to bend like that, then our paper fibers are going this direction, okay? And so I actually want to cut my strips. Now I'm saying this out loud as I was testing it before. Because it's curving really nicely this way, I want my strips to go this direction so that I have that nice bend, because it'll fight me if I try to curve it this direction. Does that make sense? So I'm gonna cut, let me look at my measurements really quickly. We need 2 pieces that are 6.5 by 1/2 inch. So what did I say that this was? We cut it to 8, didn't we? Yeah, that's 8. I'm gonna turn it down to 6.5. Or trim it down to 6.5. And again, see how that's curving more? So I'm gonna cut my strips, whoops, to kind of go with that curve. So 6.5 by 1/2 inch, we're gonna do 2 of those. They're gonna bend really nicely that way. So 2 that are 6.5 by 1/2. And then I need 1 that is 4.5 by 1/2. So I'm just gonna cut another 6.5 by 1/2 and just cut it down to 4.5. And that'll be our pieces. Okay, I'll recap those measurements. All right, so 2 strips again, 6.5 by 1/2, and 1 strip that is 4.5 by 1/2, 1 piece that's 4 by 8, and 1 piece that is 8 by 11. Okay, so I'm gonna put everything off to the side, and we're gonna score 1 piece at a time while we've got the Simply Scored out, or I'm about to bring it out. All right, so starting with the larger piece, Bubba G in the chat tonight. Not yet, he's probably traveling again. Greg was on his way to Chicago last week when you guys asked about him. Let's see, okay. So we're again, the 8 by 11, and along the 11-inch side, so the long side, we're gonna score this at 3 3/4, 5 1/4, 9, and 10 and a half. So repeating those 3 3/4, 5 1/4, 9, 10 and a half. I'm gonna turn it a quarter turn clockwise, and we're gonna score it at 1 1/2, and 6, and 6 1/2. Okay, so 1 1/2, 6, 6 1/2. Now I'm gonna turn it a quarter turn counterclockwise, so back to where we started. We needed to do both directions of score lines because now we're gonna do these score lines in the middle section, so between the second and third horizontal score lines. So count down 1, 2, and 3. We're gonna do a score line at, looking at my measurements, 4 1/2 and 9 3/4. Now you can usually eyeball this. I'm gonna lift it up to the screen just to show you. We're gonna be scoring from the second down to the third score line, so in between those two. And I'm doing this at 4 1/2. So I'm just kind of looking at my measurement here up at the top and eyeballing where I want to start it. And you'll feel the ball tip of your stylus catch in that 4 1/2 inch groove. So we're just doing that right down the center. And then 9 3/4, and you can really eyeball the halfway point here. But just to show you that on camera there, if I can catch the light, there we go. So see, it's just in those taller sections between the second and third horizontal score lines. That's gonna give us that little sort of gusset on the side. Now, if you remember I've done 2 different clutches. One was tiny to fit a gift card. One was bigger that used, I think, a full sheet of 8 1/2 by 11. I did the same thing, that little gusset along the side, okay? Oops. All right, so that's the large piece. I'm gonna put that back there for a second. While we've got the simply scored out, let's go ahead and do the smaller piece. So this again was 4 by 8, and along the 8-inch side or the long side, we're gonna go ahead and score this at 3 1/4, 3 3/4, 7, and 7 1/2. So again, 3 1/4, 3 3/4, 7, 7 1/2. I'm gonna turn it a quarter turn clockwise, and we're gonna score it at 1/2 inch, 2 1/2, and 3. Okay, so 1/2 inch, 2 1/2, and 3. Okay, so that's what that one looks like. And again, while we've got our tools out, I'm gonna bring in the shorter of the strips that we cut. This one we're gonna score at 1 inch from each side. So this is on the 4 1/2 inch side. I scored at 1 inch. Just gonna rotate, score at 1 inch again, or alternatively you could score at 1 3 1/2. It's gonna end up, when we put this together, it's gonna look like an inchworm. All of these will look like, well, this one won't look as much like an inchworm. And then this one we're gonna score at 1/2 inch from each side. So 1/2 inch. This is the long 6 1/2 piece, 1/2 inch from each side, like so. And same thing on the other 6 1/2 inch piece. Or if you wanted, you could do 1/2 inch and 6. Okay, now we're done with the scoreboard. And let's bring in our biggest piece. We'll start with that one. So the way this is gonna go, I'm gonna go ahead and fold and burnish and cut everything for the 2 pieces, the backpack and the front pocket, and then I'm gonna show you how we put them together. There's a little bit of method to my madness. Now I just have to find all my tools, because I know you guys are like me. When you're creative, you make a mess. So I just kind of put stuff all over the place. So we're gonna fold and burnish on all the score lines that go all the way across the paper. Don't worry about those short score lines we did in between the horizontal score lines. All right, so let's bring in that template up here. A little bit over overblown with the exposure there, but I'm going to start along the bottom here. So you'll know it's the bottom because the little 1/2 inch section is going to be at the top of our template. Okay, so I'm going to cut up each of the vertical score lines. Now for me, I can see them better on the back side here. Grab my paper snips. I'm going to cut up each of those vertical score lines, stopping at the first horizontal score line. And then we're going to remove this little tiny rectangle section that's down here in the corner. And I'm also going to kind of come in and miter cut slightly. You'll see that there, just a little bit of an angle cut when we remove that corner. Then I'm going to fold the big sections out of the way to isolate those tabs. And I'm going to come in and miter cut those. And the miter cuts do not have to be pretty because these tabs will be hidden inside the box. Okay, the bottom part is done. And then the top part, if I kind of dry fit how this box goes together, you'll see we've got our little 1/2 inch tucking to the back there. The only section we want to keep is this back section. That's going to be the flap on the front of the backpack that folds down from the back. So that being said, if you're looking at the template, I'm going to cut along that vertical score line just to the side of that tab. So if I flip it over this way, this is the template. I'm just going to flip it upside down so that side of the paper is closer to me. I'm just going to cut right up that first score line there on the left and stop at the second horizontal score line. Now we're actually going to remove all of these sections, and that's these 2, 4, 6, 8 scored sections, okay? So for me, let's turn it this way. Wherever it is easiest for you to get at with your paper snips, we're keeping this piece. Again, we're kind of looking at the back side of the paper, but if I turn it this way, we want to get rid of everything that I just folded behind. Now, if this is too long of a journey for your scissors, you can absolutely use your paper trimmer to do this. I'm just going to use my paper snips, and I'm just cutting right down the center of that score line. You could remove the score line if you wanted to, but I typically just cut right down the middle unless there's a special need to remove the score line. So we have essentially taken that whole section away, and that will match with our template here, okay? So the next thing we're gonna do is round the corners of our little flap here. And I've just got a corner rounder punch. This is by EK Tools. I got it off of Amazon. It's a pair of corner rounders. You guys have, nope, not that one. You guys have seen me use this 1-inch one a lot, but it comes with a 1-inch rounder and a 1/2 of an inch, which is just a sharper radius for the corner. But they come in a 2-pack. So I'm just gonna go ahead and round corners. And for the opposite corner, I just like to fold this section out of the way so I've got this flat edge all the way down. The punch guide won't get in the way, but it's just easier to hold the paper that way. So we rounded those corners. While we've got the corner rounder punch out, I'm going to share the 2 pieces of Designer Series paper. Now the smaller one is going to go on the pocket in the front, but while I've got the pieces out, we're going to go ahead and, let's see, the measurements on these, the larger one is 1 3/8 by 3 5/8. If you've got a directional pattern, you want it to be in landscape. And the smaller piece is 7/8 by 3 1/8. Same direction. If it's directional, you want to cut it to landscape, okay? So both of these, if you can see on the picture here, those are gonna go on our 2 flaps. So keep in mind, if you do have a directional pattern, you wanna make sure that the corners you're rounding are the bottom 2 corners. So have it in landscape. Make sure the top of your pattern is where you keep the square corners, and the bottom of your pattern is where you round the corners, okay? This you can't really tell which direction is which. The flowers kind of go every which way, so I'm just gonna pick a direction. And again, I'm rounding the 2 bottom corners with it in landscape. Same thing with this piece. All right, so here we go. Get those out of the way. I'm gonna put the smaller one off to the side. While we have the larger piece kind of cut and ready to go, I'm gonna go ahead and adhere my designer series paper. So again, if you rounded the right corners, the correct corners, we're gonna dry fit the box. It's gonna kind of close like this. Now I haven't pinched on the sides yet, but when you're putting this on, you kind of have your box template upside down so that your pattern is right side up. So liquid glue. And I'm gonna place that here. Now we're gonna wait to put this box together because it is easier to add the front pocket before this is completely put together. So we're gonna kind of zip back and forth between the pocket and the actual backpack itself. So with that paper adhered, I'm just gonna put this one off to the side. And we're gonna shift gears to the pocket. So again, with this one, we're just gonna fold and burnish on all the score lines. There we go. Let me bring in that template. This is going to be the smaller template now. So this guy here. And I am going to, again, focus on the bottom first. And you know it's the bottom because there's just that 1/2 inch section, whereas the top has the 1/2 inch and 1 inch at the top. So same thing as the backpack itself. I'm going to cut up each of the vertical score lines, stopping at the first horizontal score line. And again, it's just easier for me to see the score lines on the back for cutting purposes. We're going to remove this lower corner. It's a square, but also miter cut. Love the idea of Easter backpacks. Too cute for grandkids. All right, so we removed that square in the corner. I'm going to fold the big sections out of the way to isolate those tabs. And then I'm going to come in and miter cut the tabs. Like so. So the bottom is done. It looks like that. We've got our 2 tabs and then our 2 long sort of flaps or panels for the base. Now the top, similar layout you'll see where we've got our flap here on the left, and then we're removing all 8 sections on the right. Now, this is totally optional. I chose to remove the little tabs on that front pocket because I felt like that was most similar to what a pocket on the back of, or I guess the front of a backpack would look like. If you want the tabs in there, and actually Rosalyn-Sue's has tabs, so she's got the tabs there. You want to just make sure that you leave these 2 squares intact. Don't cut them away, okay? Because those are going to end up being your tabs. But for this one, I chose not to include the tabs. So it's totally up to you and your preference. I didn't find that there was any big gap on the side. And I don't know, I guess with an actual backpack, you wouldn't be moving tabs out of the way to get to the inside. So that was just, that's my reasoning for not having the tabs, but you can add them if you'd like. So again, I'm gonna focus on the top section here. I'm gonna flip it kind of mirror image here. We're keeping this section. So I'm gonna cut up the vertical score line on the far left here. And I'm going up to the second horizontal score line. And then I'm gonna turn it a quarter of a turn and we're gonna remove all 8 of these. I did forget to do one thing on the other. We'll do them at the same time. So again, same thing. I'm cutting right down the middle of that score line to remove all 8 of those scored sections like that. Okay, and again, if you wanted to keep the tabs, you'd have to cut it in a way that you leave these 2 squares. Those are these 2 squares as tabs, okay? All right, so the thing I forgot on both of these is I also need to do a little miter cut here on the side tab. So we'll do that one really quick. And before I forget, I'll do that one as well. All right, so there is that. We just need to round the corners here. Where did I put that punch? Here it is. Like so. Again, fold that out of the way and punch. There we go. Okay, so now that looks like our template. There we go. All right, so the next thing is I'm going to grab that Designer Series paper piece before it disappears on me. And same orientation, you don't want to put it that way, this way, with the rounded corners on the bottom. So liquid glue. And you've got about a 1/16 of an inch of the petunia pop peeking out from behind it. So like so, okay? Now this piece we can go ahead and assemble. Excuse me. So just like a regular box, you'll hear this if you've been around with me for a while. I'm going to fold on the second score line from the left, and I'm going to put liquid glue right there on that little 1/2 inch tab. And then I'm going to fold on the first score line from the right, and I'm going to press everything flat. And I'm just making sure that this bottom edge is all lined up front and back. And the score lines are all connected with each other. And that just makes sure that you've got that base of the box totally square. But this is just pressed down totally flat using our score lines to square up our box, okay? And you can kind of flip it back and forth if you want to while that glue adheres. Then we're going to focus on the base. And this is kind of a narrow box, so you just need to take your time with the base. I'm going to fold in the 2 tabs and put liquid glue on the tabs. And then liquid glue on this front flap, the back side of it. Like that, okay? So I like to press this on my surface, just kind of setting it so it's got a little bit of something to stand on. I'm going to fold the back flap over those 2 tabs and then the front flap. Now, I like to kind of take my time and just line up and square up the bottom first and just press down. So I've squared up the corners. Just use, with the liquid glue, this is really easy, but just kind of pinch on the 4 corners, pinch on either side, and just make sure that's all lined up. And then I'll take my bone folder and I take the rounded edge and just press. Again, I've got this pushed down on my surface using leverage from the underside and then the bone folder on the inside. And that just presses everything down. Okay. Then we're going to do a Velcro dot, which I just opened up a new box, so I haven't sandwiched the hooks and loops together yet like I like to, but I'll share that really briefly what I typically do with a new box of Velcro dots, which I do have linked in the video description as well. But when you get your box, and this is my favorite size, the 5/8 of an inch circle, partly I love this because of the way that it comes on these rolls of acetate. The 3/8 inch circles, while I love the size, those come on sheets, a little bit harder to work with. So what I do is, so they will come rolled like this with a little piece of Velcro holding the whole roll together. And I basically take the whole roll of 75 circles and I sandwich together all of the hooks and loops, and I'll go all the way down the whole length of the 75 circles. And then basically I have a whole strip of Velcro dots ready to go. Now for tonight, I'm just gonna do 2 at a time because you don't need to sit here and watch me match up all of the hooks and loops. I'm just gonna cut off 2 of the hook pieces. And then get to my end of the loop pieces, and I'm just going to layer those together. So there's 1, and I'll trim that piece off. We need 2 of these for the backpack. You could cut these in half if you wanted to make them go further. So at some point, I will work my magic and sandwich those 2 together, so it doesn't slow me down. All right, so I'm gonna grab the backing off of the hook side. That's the side that's more clear, more see-through. And we're gonna put that on. I like to kind of hold it so that I can center it. Place it about there. Pull the back off of the loop side, and then take your time folding this down. I just make sure that everything's lined up before I press that down in place. So I've kind of got my hands on either side, making sure that that's lined up with the edges. And then I just press gently, I reopen it back up, and then I just press on those Velcro dots 1 more time, okay? So again, lining it up. And that is our front pocket, such a cute little box. And no, it will not fit a gift card unless maybe that's been asked already. The pocket looks close, but it's just a little too small. Now I did, just so you know, I did try to design this so that the front pocket fit a gift card. It didn't look right proportionately, so that is why we stuck with this size. All right, I'm gonna bring our backpack piece back, and we're gonna start to assemble this, and then we'll add the pocket, and then we'll finish assembling. So bringing this back to the back side, I'm gonna fold technically on the 3rd score line from the left, because if you also count that little midline score line there. So I'm going to fold that this way, and I'm going to put liquid glue along that 1/2 inch tab. Then I'm going to fold on the 1st score line from the right and get the side adhered for now. Now we're going to add the pocket before we adhere the base, and that is just going to give us leverage. Now, whichever side you want this to flip to, this is the section, because this flap is going to come down from the back. This is the section we're going to add our little pocket to. So whichever way you want that to go, we're going to glue our pocket down now while we can keep the backpack itself flat. That's just going to give us some desktop leverage to make sure that that is glued down nice and tight. So the size of this little box, it is 2 inches by 3 1/4 by 1/2 inch. This is 3 3/4 wide. That means we have 1/4 inch on either side of that pocket that we'll see. Let me bring this up to, ignore this section on the side. So we're focused on centering the pocket in this biggest section here. I want it to come in 1/4 from the score line, in 1/4 from the folded edge, and in 1/4, or I should say up 1/4 from this bottom score line. That's going to be the right spot to place that on the front of your backpack. Okay, so see, it's proportionate around the sides and the bottom. So liquid glue on the back of our pocket. And you can be fairly generous with glue here. Don't go crazy though, because we don't want it to ooze out past the box. But a little bit of extra glue like that is going to allow us to slide this right into place. And I am, again, just taking a look that we're about 1/4 inch up from that bottom score line, 1/4 inch over from that folded edge, and 1/4 inch in from this score line here. And I'm just pressing down this way for the moment to get it to initially stick. Then I will open my pocket here, and you can actually put your hand inside, or if your fingers are larger than the inside of the box, you can also come in with your bone folder. Bone folder actually probably gives you a little bit more control. So I am again just pressing down to the surface, or my desktop, I should say. to make sure that that's good and adhered. Just way easier to do that while you've got some leverage. Okay, and then we can close our box again, like so. Now what we're gonna do is focus on the base of the box here. So again, where our pocket is the front of our backpack. I'm gonna fold that front flap out of the way. Let's fold the two side flaps in, and same thing, liquid glue on the flaps. And then liquid glue on this front flap. Again, I've got this flat on my surface here. I'm gonna fold down the back flap, then the front flap, and again, work my magic with the liquid glue, lining up those corners and edges. Again, pressing from the outside, and then I will flip it over. I like to use the glue bottle for this. If you can get your hand in there in the glue bottle. I'm just taking the flat edge of my glue bottle here in my desktop surface and pressing down on the inside, like so. You could also use your bone folder. Again, I like to use the rounded edge. I find the pointy edge will leave marks. And just press that. I don't think I can get my hands in there, just barely. So there we go. Okay, now this next part is pretty important. Ask me how I know. I was doing the template. I pinched first, and then I had a little bit of a breakdown here on the side. So I recommend that you take your index fingers. I've got my middle finger on the inside, and I'm gonna just gently fold, kind of coercing the paper to travel most of the way down that score line. If you just pinch up here, this may break, not break, but the cardstock fibers might break at a certain point on the side. Let me see if I have a sample. This one is a perfect example. This was my sample I was working on as I was doing measurements. Can you see how the paper kind of broke down on the side? I didn't coerce that score line first before I pinched, and then it started to buckle a little bit. Like this popped out down here, and then I got kind of that, I don't know if you can see those wrinkles. They look like shadows, but they're actually wrinkles in the paper, and it happened on both sides. So just a tip for you there. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. Again, I'm just gently pushing on that score line that we made in the middle. So now when I pinch, the paper is just giving us that really nice gusseted look on the side. Now we've got a 1/2 inch here on the top, so it's not gonna pinch all the way closed, but this is a really good size for treats. So Rosalyn-Sue gave me, I don't know, 3 or 4 Ferrero Rochers, some Hershey's Nuggets in there. There was also one of those little mini Sharpie keychains, or the little mini Sharpie for a keychain, that was in there as well. So it's a pretty good size. This is 4.5 inches tall, 1.5 inches deep, 3 3/4 inches wide. Again, it does taper, so that will affect the things that you can fit in it, but this would be so cute maybe with like mini pens and a pack of Post-it notes, maybe a couple of, I think a Ghirardelli square would fit in this front pocket, or even the mini Ghirardellis. You could do a number of different things, whether they're sweet treats or more useful things like office supplies. But let's go ahead and close the top, and then we'll focus on the back straps and the top handle, and then we'll finish off this adorable backpack gift box. So I'm gonna peel off the backing again from my second pair of Velcro dots, and gonna center this here. Perfect for a Girl Scout camp, Rhonda. I love where you're going with that. All right, so then I'm gonna take my time and again, make sure that this is, whoops, I'm pinching and closing before I line that. Just making sure everything's lined up first before I press down that Velcro dot. Okay, so nicely closed on the top. Again, let's go ahead and reopen this. I'm just pressing, reinforcing those Velcro dots again. All right, so it's coming together. So now we're just gonna add some finishing touches, but how stinking cute. I love this project so much. All right, let's start with that 4.5 inch strip. Again, this was 4.5 by 1/2 inch. We scored at 1 inch from each side. And I am going to take my bone folder and thumb. So bone folder, cardstock, thumb, that's my little sandwich here. And I'm just gently curving or curling the paper. Now, if you happen to cut your paper against the grain, I guess it's like slicing a piece of steak. You're cutting against the grain so that the grain makes this easier to work with or easier to eat. But let me show you on, not that one. I learned a lot when I was doing my prototype. Can you see how that is, I did with the grain. Is that right? Yeah, I cut it with the grain and then I got those weird lines, okay? So alternatively, I'm gonna fold on those little, see, this is the inchworm one, so it's gonna look like an inchworm, but do you see how much nicer that cardstock looks because we cut against the grain? All right, so we're gonna start by putting liquid glue on one side up to the score line. And then we're gonna line this up right to the edge there. So this is the same width as the top of our backpack. It's gonna look like it was meant to be there all along. And then I'm gonna put liquid glue on the other side, again, just up to that score line. And you can play around if you want a bigger handle, smaller handle, shorter, longer. And I'm just kind of pinching along there, but how cute. There's our little handle to grab it, okay? Now we've got our 2 straps. And same thing with these. I'm going to, again, curve the paper. I'll do that on both of them. And then I'm gonna fold under, whoops, as opposed to where we did kind of the inchworm look here, where we folded it up. These ones we're gonna tuck under. And I'm not even gonna use the bone folder for those because I kind of want it to be a little bit more natural of a look. Okay, so they're gonna look like so. These are gonna be our backpack straps. And I'm gonna dry fit them first so you can kind of see how they're gonna go on. I found that it was easiest to start at the bottom. And then I'm angling this, so I'm going down kind of as far as I can to that bottom left corner. And I'm angling this in a way that this right edge of it hits kind of right in the middle where, I should say the middle of the top or middle right underneath that handle. And then this one, we're gonna do the same, but have those both kind of meet right there, okay? So I'm just gonna start with the first one. So liquid glue on that little, oops, get the glue boogers off. A little bit of liquid glue here. Okay, and then again, we're gonna start in that lower left corner. And again, I'm just making sure that as I straighten this out, that right edge there hits the center. And I'm just gonna hold that in place. It doesn't need to be perfect here, but close enough. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing with the opposite side. So again, that lower right corner now, but I want to just pivot this so that those meet up. See how those meet up right at the top there? Just kind of getting the angles as close as we can. It doesn't need to be perfect. There we go, just holding those in place. I can kind of fold that back and press in there. And now we're just gonna put liquid glue on the top little 1/2 inch section here. This one's gonna go at the very top. Again, just kind of eyeballing it. So this little edge here is right at the center point. If you wanted to, you could have the straps be a little bit more straight. These might be too much of an angle for you, but totally up to you. And then that's just going to go right next to it, kind of at the same angle there. So cute. I'm just gently giving it some pressure here as that adheres. And then we've got our little straps, little top handle, back straps, like so, okay? So now we're gonna decorate this a wee bit. I'm gonna bring in some scrap berry burst. And we're gonna do a little bit of stamping. This is like a full sheet of scrap, but we're gonna stamp with love in berry burst. That. Punch that out with a 1-inch circle punch, or if you've got a die this size, that works too. And then we're going to use our Unbounded Love circle die. This is about 1 1/8 inches in diameter. I'm going to bring in my Anna Griffin Empress Mini to die cut this. Oops. I'm so glad you guys will be able to use this for Easter. That's awesome. All right, so there's the die cut. I love this because it's got a little bit of stitching on it. There's that. We'll adhere the stamped sentiment onto our circle. So Berry Burst is the other accent color that's in the designer series paper we used on this. And I'm gonna go a little crazy with my dimensionals. I'm gonna fit 3 of them on there, and that's just gonna make sure that it's nice and popped up. I always say you can never have too many dimensionals. 1 would be totally fine, but I feel like being a little extra. And we're gonna pop that in the center of the top flap. Looks good. Gonna add a little rhinestone for some bling, and then you're gonna watch me struggle with the ribbon, but I love the way Rosalyn-Sue did her ribbon, so pop a little rhinestone there. And if you don't want to add the ribbon, this is adorable as it is. You also don't even need to add the stamped sentiment, because I think the backpack is just cute the way it is. You could hang off a little tag that would be really cute, just like Rosalyn-Sue did. She added this "Love You" tag on there, which was adorable. All right, so I actually have not used this before, or maybe I used up a whole other spool, but I just opened this spool today. This is the iridescent striped trim. It is 1/2 inch in width, and I'm gonna do, I don't know, 16 to 18 inches. I'm totally eyeballing this. Probably gonna be too much, but I'm gonna cut off about that length. I don't know, does that look like 16 to 18 inches? And I'm gonna take my ribbon scissors. So if you've got a good pair of ribbon scissors or extra clean paper snips, I'm actually gonna cut this right down the center to make 2 narrower pieces. So we're gonna have a little bit of a double bow here. Probably should have done this ahead of time, but it won't take me too long. I find it does go easier if you're using your index finger and middle finger at the top to kind of keep that ribbon taut. Like that. And now we've got 2 pieces that we can tie a bow together, and it just gives us a little bit more of a bow. I love the way Rosalyn-Sue did that on hers. So super inspired by her project. All right, so now the fun part is trying to tie this with 2 strands of ribbon. We'll see how I do. Trying to keep them stacked as best I can. think we go right over left. I'm so used to tying off the spool. It's like when I'm not on the spool, my brain stops working. So there we go. Got our little crisscross. And we'll bring up our loops from the bottom. Bring the top ones down and around and through. Come on, ribbon. Yay, it worked. Well, this went faster than when I was doing the prototype. I'm just gonna zhuzh a bit, trim off any excess I have. Totally up to you if you want to angle cut the ends or just cut them straight. I'm gonna do a bit of an angle cut, but the ribbon will have a little bit of a mind of its own, being a double looped ribbon, but you can come in and separate the loops and kind of just spread out the tails. Bring that ribbon down on your handle if you need to. And there we have our backpack gift box, or if you wanted to call it a backpack gift bag, that works too. It looks a little bit more than like a gift bag than a gift box, but super cool style and design. Thank you again, Rosalyn-Sue, for the inspiration. I absolutely loved your swap from OnStage Raleigh. And here is the pixie version of that. So linked in the video description, as I mentioned at the beginning, you can download the project sheet. If you're on my email list, you're gonna get that emailed out to you tomorrow as well. The free project sheet, let me show you what's on there. You've got pictures for reference. I printed this in black and white to save ink, but you've got a QR code to take you right back to this video. I will add timestamps so that you can jump through different sections, skip the intro and all of that stuff and go straight to the demonstration. Also, just a reminder, you can watch it QuickTime, you can slow it down, you can pause, rewind, anything you need to do to help you recreate this project. This is why I do what I do, so that you all feel like you can recreate these projects to bless other people's lives. You've got an episode number, the date the episode aired, all the measurements you need. I had to make them a little bit smaller font because there were so many measurements today. That's what happens when you've got two boxes in one. On the back, you've got the templates for reference. And then these are the Stampin' Up! Supplies I used with their item numbers. If you save this digitally, these are all hyperlinked, as well as the QR code is a hyperlink too. So that's the free project sheet you get with my projects. That's linked in the video description. My email list gets it emailed directly to them tomorrow, so they don't have to look for it in the description. You can join my email list. You'll find that in the video description as well, thepaperpixie.com/subscribe. And now we're gonna jump to your questions tonight. I saw some great questions coming through. So just as a reminder, if you've joined us late, put a Q in front of your question that will make it into my queue. I am about 20 to 30 seconds ahead of you. Magic of live streaming. So if I miss your question at the tail end, feel free to email me at support@thepaperpixie.com, or you can ask me in any future episode as well. So let me get those teed up. Yay, I'm so glad you guys love the project. All right, whoops, I always do that. I forget to move the scene. Hillary Martin is up first. What is the glue in the ultra fine tip glue container? So, did I use that last week? I thought I brought it out. In the ultra fine tip glue container, the one that Stampin' Up! Sells is the fine tip glue pen. And my understanding is what's in there is the same as our Crystal Effects. So in the fine tip glue pen, I actually transferred what was left over from my fine tip glue bottle because mine was extra clogged and I couldn't get it cleared out. So I just transferred it to a new fine tip glue container. I think that's what you're asking about, but let me know if that's not correct, Hillary, okay? So hard copies of the catalog, Nancy, because Stampin' Up! Is sending them, I don't know exactly when you're going to get them, but it usually takes about 2 to 3 weeks since they shipped them, and I believe they started shipping them April 1st. You should receive it no problem before the annual catalog goes live. One of the challenges with bulk mail, however, is it is up to your local post office on when they deliver that. So if you don't have it, I think the date is by... I think Stampin' Up! Said May 9th. Let me know and we'll work something out, but you should have it in time for the annual catalog to go live on May 6th. I did send one to myself as well, so I kind of have an idea of when you guys will start receiving your catalogs, but it should hopefully be in the next week or two, okay? All right, so Lori, your dear mother is in assisted living and she's 78. I would love to teach the residents a paper project. Do you have any ideas that would be simple and cute? Ooh, this is a tough one for me to think of on the fly. I would say I've got quite a few projects that you can create fairly easily with 6x6 paper. I'm trying to think. I had done the diaper fold project, which I hate the name of the diaper fold, but it does fold like a diaper. That is one that's fairly easy to create. You don't need to do score lines. That's all a little bit of origami, but by just folding the paper in a certain way to make a cute little treat pouch. That could be something really cute, Lori, for the assisted living residents. I did another one that was more square. That one I think used score lines. The angular one is much easier to fold, but a little diaper fold might be easy, and then you can just cut up a bunch of 6x6 papers. You could even do 12x12, and they could just do an extra large one. That could be kind of cute to fill with treats. That's what's popping into my head right now, but feel free to email me, Lori, at support@thepaperpixie.com, and I can take a look at some of my other projects and see if I've got any other ideas I can send your way. It gets to the point of doing this for so many years. I have so many projects out there, and sometimes I forget which projects I've done until I go back and kind of take a look through it. Let's see. Okay, Cheryl Reno, I've placed an order which is due to arrive tomorrow, but part of the order is listed as shipment pending. Do you know why only part of an order would be shipped? Good question. If you've ordered from me, send me an email at support@thepaperpixie.com, and I can take a look specifically at your order. Typically, if something is pending still, it's or at least what I've seen historically is that inventory sold out for that product before they could fulfill your order. And sometimes that happens. Usually the inventory numbers are accurate, but sometimes there can be an oversold situation, and they will send you the product when it becomes available. But yeah, feel free, email me if you've ordered with me. Otherwise, email your demonstrator if you've ordered with them, and they should be able to give you details. But typically it's just an oversold situation. They don't typically do back orders at all, but sometimes it happens, especially around last chance product time. So if it was a last chance product, they may need to wait for it to come in from another market to fulfill that order, but it all depends on the product. So this box is too small for gifting a set of cards, unless you're doing 3x3 cards, because it is, again, 4.5 tall, but only 3 3/4 wide. So that's not wide enough for a A2 card, and also not for a note card. Note cards are 3.5 by 5, so those would be too tall. A2 cards are 4.25 by 5.5, those are too big. But 3x3s would fit in here. That could be a cute idea in the box as well. 3x3s, post-it, like sticky notes, the 3x3 sticky notes, that would work as well. Same thing, Joan Ballinger, with your order as well. Feel free to email me to check on that for you. Okay, so cleaning the paper trimmer track. So in most cases, it is just paper fibers that have collected over time from cutting. And it's been, I don't remember which live stream it was, but I shared how I clean mine. I just take a scrap piece of cardstock and I fold it in half. So I have kind of this folded edge, and I take this corner edge here and I just push that through the track to see if I can get any paper fibers to come out. You almost always get paper fibers, and I go in both directions. So you just want that folded edge corner to just slide down the track, and it's just, you fold it in half so you've got 2 layers of cardstock, really perfect thickness to go in that cutting groove, and I go both directions to get all the paper fibers out, and that should clean it up pretty well. If you need to, You could also put like a little piece of cotton ball on the end of take your pick tool and put a little bit of rubbing alcohol on there. Like if you might have some adhesive, if you've cut some sticky things, you can try that as well. Just put a little bit of cotton ball on the tip, get some like 70% isopropyl alcohol and just run that up and down the track. Now, I will be careful with the alcohol. Don't let it touch the arm on your paper trimmer because that could remove the paint of the measurements. So just keep the arm out of the way. The arm should be out of the way anyways while you're cleaning the track, but just be careful with alcohol, not to touch the paint, the measurement paint on the arm, okay? Does the front pocket fit a Trident pack of gum? I don't have a pack of Trident on me to double check, but I think Trident is longer than the pocket. So if anybody happens to have a pack of Trident gum, magically in the chat, if you could measure the length, but I believe it is wider than 3 1/4. So again, that box is 3 1/4 by 3 1/4 wide, 2 inches tall, 1/2 inch in depth, okay? So Rhonda, I shared at the beginning of the stream the tips for figuring out the grain direction of the paper, but I can show you really quickly again. So I don't believe, and I'm not trying to throw Stampin' Up! Under the bus at all, but I don't know that they pay attention to the grain when they cut the 8.5 by 11. I think they get, what are they called? They told us the name. They get giant sheets of cardstock and then they cut it down to 8.5 by 11. And I'm not sure that they pay attention to the direction of the grain. The only reason I say that is I can't say, oh, the grain always runs along the 8.5 inch side or the grain always runs along the 11 inch side. That's not necessarily the case. So what I typically do to figure out the grain is I take the paper and I bend it. And I'm just light pressure with both hands, I bend it. So this one is bending really easily, and that happens to be along the 8.5 inch side. If I do it on the 11 inch side, I'm putting more pressure and it's not folding as nicely. So that says to me that the grain is running long ways. So I want to cut it against the grain so that when I want to curve the paper, it's going to curve really nicely without any warping or wrinkles in the cardstock. Okay, so if we feel that it's folding nicely this way, then our paper grains are going long ways and we want to cut it against the grain. And that's only really when you need to do some paper curling or curving or whatever, quilling. Remember, what did I call it last time? It was not paper quilling, it was something else, but hopefully that helps you. Just kind of gently press on either side, both directions, and see which one bends easier than the other way, and that will tell you the direction. Okay, a travel pack of Kleenex measures 4.5 by 2.5 by 3/4. Will that fit in the front pocket? It will not. So again, front pocket 3 1/4 to 1/2 inch. So the front pocket's pretty teeny tiny. It will not fit a pack of Kleenex. And to be honest, Kleenex will not fit in the big pocket either because this is 4.5 inches tall, but it tapers at the top. So I think this will bulge at the top with a pack of Kleenex, okay? Let's see, would DSP on the front and back stop the closure on the front and the handles on the back from working properly? It will not. You could absolutely cover more of the front with DSP. Again, I would put the DSP down first. Like if you're wanting to put DSP on this part of the box and on the back, you're gonna put the DSP down first before you put the larger box together. So same time that we put the DSP on the flap, you'd put it on the front and the back as well. And then you can still absolutely use the flaps and glue the pocket down on the front and all of that stuff, no issue. So your straps will go on top of the DSP, but that should work just fine. For a little boy, I would just not add the bow, to be honest. I think that this looks great without the ribbon on the top. This is my prototype again, so it's a little bit wonky, but this absolutely would be perfect for a boy, even with the top handle. I think if you were to use something like pecan pie on this, that really any of our neutrals, but pecan pie would be a really cool color cardstock to make this as like a little knapsack. You could use the new online exclusives paper that's the textures one. Trying to think of the name of that one. Is it in my pile here? No. I just had it out, I think. The one I'm thinking of is woven textures. This would be so cool with, well, yeah, pecan pie is one of the colors in it, but crumb cake, early espresso, gray granite, basic beige, any of those colors would be really cool to make a masculine version of this. I would leave the handle on the top because it just, I don't know, I feel like almost like an army green, like canvas knapsack. Do those have handles on the top? I'm looking at Brian because yeah, most of them have handles on the top. Yeah. So I would leave the handle on the top. Just change up the colors and the paper that you use. You can absolutely make it look masculine. A gift card will not fit, Lynn. So again, gift cards are 3 3/8 by 2 1/8. This is 3 1/4, so just 1/8 of an inch too small, and 2, so 1/8 of an inch too small in both directions. But money will fit for sure. You could fold up a little check as well. But yeah, absolutely. You could actually have kind of fun and roll up money tightly and drop a few bills in there. That would be a cute little thing to put in the front pocket for sure. Alrighty, we got to the end of the questions tonight, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed tonight's project or learned a new tip or trick or two, be sure to give this video a thumbs up here on YouTube. That helps us out here. And if you're new here, please consider subscribing to the channel. You'll be notified each time I schedule a new video. We are live here at the Paper Pixie every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to be live again next week for episode 371. That will be April 16th. We will officially be underway with Stampin' Up's new Stampin' Rewards program, so I'll share more details about that now that it will be live next week. Again, Monday is the last day to earn Pixie Perks with me before we transition to the new Stampin' Rewards program. As always, if you have any questions, just email me at support@thepaperpixie.com. Don't forget, all you need are stamps, ink, and a little paper pixie. We'll be live again next week. That's right, I already said that, April 16th, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern, 371. And I hope you guys have a wonderful and blessed week. Here's a special shout out to my Pixie patrons, and we'll see you next time. Take good care. Bye.